What if I told you that this is a Doom mod? And what if I told you that it's not a mod for Doom 3, 2016, or even Eternal, but a mod for Doom 2? When I streamed the game, pretty much everybody asked me if I was lying in the chat. I'm live on YouTube at 10:30 AM Pacific time every Saturday and Sunday. So I had something in my throat there. So, the game is called Total Chaos, and it was made by a huge team consisting of one dude. It goes by the name of Wadaholic, and on occasion, yes, he was said to have been helped by friends on this game, but for the most part, it was pretty much all him, which is evident from the fact that this game took 9 years. Now, as I'm sure you're already able to gather, this is not your average Doom mod, and it is effectively its own game at this point, but that's also a problem. There is 2 versions of Total Chaos that are out there, but if you're someone like me who maybe wasn't fully educated on the game, you might have picked up the standalone version on its own, which is not the correct version of the game to be playing. If you picked up that version of the game, you'd be missing out on nearly 3 hours of content. And because this poor guy had no idea what was going on either, and didn't get an answer, let me explain it. The additions are 3.5 new chapters, 11 plus weapons, 7 plus enemies, and boss fights. I seriously don't understand why the original version of the game is still out there. Just play the director's cut, please. When we start the game, there's a bunch of important story stuff that shows up, but when I played it on stream, I didn't really care. Where's the game? Yeah, that's what I'm waiting for. And that goes for the same with all of the other story elements, until I realised it was actually pretty important.
There is nothing to find down there. Head to the storage room.
If you play the game, please read the notes you find around the world. It is a vital part of the game, and until later in the video I'm not going to really explain much about it, but just keep it in the back of your mind. For now, all you need to know is that we are a coast guard, we washed up on this spooky island, and there's monsters everywhere. Oh no, oh my god. The first section of the game gets you used to how the game works, which goes without saying, but there is a lot of mechanics that I need to talk about. First of all, we have stats in this game, and not like the stats you see in Doom, which is just your ammo and the amount of secrets and your health and stuff like that. These are actually really in-depth stats, for the most part. I'm only going to go over the less obvious ones, which are bleeding, radiation, and hunger. Hunger is more so simple, you know, think Minecraft, if you don't eat stuff, you start to die. But with that also comes radiation, because a lot of the food you'll find around Fort Oasis is irradiated, and when you eat it, you'll get your radiation going up. At a certain point, this will start to kill you. Bleeding is the more important one I'd like to discuss, because I actually think it's really interesting. If you get hit by an enemy with sharp claws or teeth, then it'll cause more bleeding than actual health damage, which in the long run causes more damage to you, as bleeding will quickly lower your health. As we progress through the tutorial, we come across our first enemy. I don't actually know where it went. Oh wait. Oh! Now, I bet you're wondering, why is that man 3D? Why is that slope sloping? And why are my eyeballs being incinerated? Well, this is all made possible because the version of the game we're playing is called Cheesy Doom. It allows stuff like slope floors, 3D models, and lighting effects. Anyway, what was we doing? Oh yeah, so we have to flip all these switches so we can avoid this enemy. Once we've done that, we get through this gate that allows us to escape. We aren't safe for long though, because a lot more enemies start flooding in from the other directions. Let me back. What am I meant to do? I can't see anything. Once we make it through, we get contacted by the radio.
You have come here to find something. Something we have both desired for a long time. Your presence in this place means you are willing to do what I ask of you. If you follow my requests, then I will take you to what it is you desire.
So we get outside, we find that the door to the underhalls is locked. Now on the way to the key, we find our second enemy. When I first played this area, I was terrified, because my pickaxe was pretty much broken. I didn't have anything to defend myself with. However, when you go back through a door, enemies will usually just sit at the door and wait for you to come back through. But given that this is a Doom game, I went back through the door and I telefragged him. Oh. It died. Wait, did I telefrag it? There's no way I just telefragged it. This made getting the key a lot easier. And with that, we make our way into the underhalls. At the start of this chapter, we get shown a new mechanic: throwing things. This can be used as a weapon, or to hit faraway switches that you can't reach with your bare hands. This mechanic is actually really important, and is very useful for getting you out of tight combat positions where you may not have otherwise survived. It also helps you save on ammo and weapon durability, because managing the durability of your weapons is vital to your survival. This is the first more open level, and we do get to do a lot of backtracking here, given that this is still a Doom mod that's obviously going to be a large part of the game, and I really like that. The goal here is to open this big shutter and progress through, but to do that we once again need to find a key. We eventually find this hallway that is covered in bodies and is making this really horrible sound, honestly. Continuing down the hallway, we find a hole, and once dropping down there, we see this. These enemies are asleep for now, but they're called Longlegs, and they are an absolute pain in the early parts of the game. There is a switch that is behind you once you drop down though. If you flip that switch, it will wake all of the enemies up. The first time I went through this area, I made a really big mistake of flipping it and leaving them all alive. The second time though, I did the most Doom thing possible and save scummed my way through all of it. And whilst this does take a really long time to do, you will not regret it, because there's a key in this room, and with that key you can unlock the room that has the shotgun in it. The shotgun is very powerful and is one of the most useful tools that you have in the game. But personally, I'd only use it in a very tense situation, or a situation where you're literally about to die, because ammo is very scarce. Upon making it outside, we come face to face with one of the most annoying enemies in the game, the dogs. Again, like I mentioned earlier, some enemies that hit you with sharper attacks will cause more bleeding than damage. That is what the dogs do. Unfortunately though, they usually travel in packs, and also effectively stun lock you when you get hit by them. Later in the game they are easier to manage, you can just shoot them, but here it's a careful dance of trying not to get bit. Once I got the key, I went back up to the outside area, and there is a graveyard there full of loot. The radio does tell us not to go down there as
there is nothing to find down there. Head to the storage room.
But there's simply too much loot down there for me, a greedy hoarder, to resist taking. Once down there, you'll be greeted with an enemy that is both invisible and kills you very, very quickly. But personally, I didn't actually find much problem with it, and I killed it on my second attempt. Wait, did I kill it? Once it's dead, you're pretty much safe to go and loot the entire place. Backtracking to the shutter door, and we kinda get the first mini-boss area. In here, there's an enemy that the radio calls Leader, and it can't be killed unless you're a cheater. It just stands and stares at you. Odd, but upon looking away, it will follow you. And if it gets too close, it'll do this. It's killed me. Personally, make a bolt for the key, and make a bolt to the exit.
I've been isolated in this place. It has been suffocating.
Here we meet a new enemy, the Splitter, I think. It's a tiny bit tougher than the Brute, and it does do a lot of damage, but it is pretty easily killed. The goal of this level is to get this bridge back up and running, so that we can get to the armory and get some better weapons to face the first... I'm not gonna talk about that yet. Out of all the levels, this is probably one of my least favourites. There is a worse one later, trust me. It isn't a bad level, I just don't really have much interest in it. I thought it was kind of boring, personally. We do meet these terrifying new enemies called the Lickers. They have giant tongues that sprout out of their body, and they travel in packs, but they are very weak. I also did manage to break the game here. I don't think I was meant to do this. Crossing the bridge to the armory, and yeah, we do find a lot of loot here, including a new gun. The reason we had to get the gun though, was because of this. This is the first boss in the game, and seemingly the only boss in Total Chaos, because I didn't see a single other boss. Honestly, it isn't the most difficult boss I've ever faced, but I do think it was pretty fun. It can hit you with a melee attack, or use a psychic attack if you're too far away from it. And in true Doom fashion, just shoot it until it dies.
That's one less loose end.
A storm is approaching.
Unlike the last level, this is one of my favourite levels in the game. It has 3 main sections to it. This apartment block, this main building that is blocked off by these growths, and the arcade. To pass through the bit that's blocked off by the growths, we need to create a Molotov. For that, we need a key into one of the arcade storage rooms, and to get that key, we need to go into the apartments. The first floor of the apartments isn't too special, it's just a lot of combat with enemies that we've already seen before. The second floor, however, is amazing. Steam? What was that? What was that? Oh no. This must be the way I actually have to go. Are you joking? Wait, is there 2 of them? There's 2 of them. Yeah. Oh, great. Go on. Great. We get blocked in here with multiple different versions of leader, and we need to try and get our way to the exit without them boxing us in and killing us. Moments like this test a player's abilities to stick with a game, and I really am glad that I did stick with it. Oh, no, I'm stuck. There's 3 of them? Are you joking? There's 3 of them. During our journey through the apartments, we did actually manage to get the key, which then leads us to the arcade. This area is full of enemies, and actually looks like a Call of Duty Zombies map to me. Right, so I've made the Molotovs and I'm on my way out. But the room where you can find the axe, there's also this head on the stage. He tells us some pretty dark jokes, honestly, and then just leaves, saying that if people need him. No, I didn't add that sound effect. Once getting outside, we're greeted with this incredible looking storm. Once we get back inside, we burn through the growths from the Molotovs and continue into...
There is only one way to the mine from here, down in the Catacombs.
The bridge to our next destination has been destroyed, so we'll need to go through the Catacombs to get there. The only problem is that the Catacombs have been flooded, and we did turn on the pumps to get them unflooded. Unflooded? On the way, we meet a new enemy, a brute wearing mining stuff. No Drake, not that kind of miner. The way to the pump station is long and full of enemies, and doors that jump scare you, apparently. Oh. That's the 3rd time this has happened to me on this playthrough. This bit here is one of my favourite parts of the game. I have no idea how they pulled this off in Doom. It just keeps looping around and around the same corridor, with it slightly changing each time. It's terrifying, confusing, and really impressive. Once we get off there, we see don't see a new enemy.
What the? Oh! Oh my god. What? Oh my god, what is that?
You have to listen to its footsteps to try and find out where it is. One of the most terrifying and one of my favourite enemies in the game. Good stuff.
I hate horror games so much. Why is there a switch that doesn't work here?
The outside area is great. This foggy forest surrounded by enemies really gave me a very tense feeling in my stomach. We also have to deal with multiple leaders again, but this one was nowhere near as challenging as the bit in the apartments. But the part of the level that took me longest here is this puzzle. We're still in the forest, but there's no enemies about. Instead, we find a note that details our way to multiple different locations. There's a warehouse full of loot and stuff like that we'd probably want to go and get, and there's also the pump station that we are on our way to. But I was confused by the forest just constantly repeating itself. But that's part of the puzzle. You have to follow it all the way around. It took me a really long time to figure this out, and I have no idea why. The pump station is very dangerous, and the final challenge of this level. When you start the pumps, the level ends. Do you remember when I mentioned there was a level worse than the one earlier? Well, welcome to that level. I thought we was done with this area, but no! This entire level is backtracking through what we just did in the previous level. I honestly hate backtracking like this. I know they used it just to pad out the game, but still. It does take us to a pretty cool area though, which is this place where we have to navigate around using flares and a map. all whilst avoiding these radioactive enemies that never show up again in the game. I also found a doot on the wall.
Wait, that's a doot.
That's it, I'm not talking about this level anymore. I love this level. This is probably one of my favourite levels in the game. It's amazing. Everything about it is so cool. It really gave me Blood or Dusk vibes. And the music too. The music was so good. In this level, you can tell we are getting closer to the mines. It is crawling with enemies everywhere. And we get some new weapons too. I got to try out the nail gun, which honestly kind of sucks. But on the better end of things, we got the super shotgun. It has a huge spread and deals a ton of damage. It's great for crowd control, but the only downside is that it uses 2 shells at once, and in a game where ammo is this scarce, I decided not to keep it, because often I use the shotgun on just one enemy that's bigger, and I don't want to be using 2 shells on an enemy like that. Sorry super shotgun, but I need to leave you behind. This chapter was confusing, but not bad. I actually really enjoyed it. The goal here is to get a master key in order to open up all of the areas of the map and build ourselves a radiation suit, because for the first time in the game, there's areas that we can't progress through because it's too radioactive. The highlight of this level is where we're trapped in this dream sequence, and the reason it's the highlight is because it was terrifying. The whole time I had this anxiety that maybe an enemy was going to pop up out of nowhere and it would chase me around this labyrinth. Once we get out, we do get the master key though, and get to explore a lot more of the level. Every area where there's bits of the radiation suit that we need to pick up has this giant tumor-like thing hanging above it, and when you pick up the parts, it seems to be hurt. This is important later, you need to remember this. We have a really tough combat section here, but once we put it together, we head to the mines. This is by far the most difficult chapter in the game. It is full to the brim with enemies, and because of this, the game does give us a lot of ammo to compensate. The low visibility from the radiation suit makes it especially tense and overwhelming. It avoids just being a power fantasy shooting gallery because of the sheer difficulty that we have to deal with here. Once we make it to the mine's control room, we find a table sitting in a dark room on its own. And let me stop you right there. I mentioned at the start of the video that we could often find these notes around. These were written from 3 parties usually. Either a man named Tyler, a woman called Lida, or a doctor's clinic. Tyler washed up on the island that we were on, and he started a life there with his wife Lida. For unknown reasons they split up, and many of the letters that you could find from Tyler were often full of self-hatred and stuff like that. They are often bitter and hateful towards himself, and the notes from the doctor also detailed that Tyler had an illness that we hadn't yet went over. Because of this, he had to go back to the mainland for treatment. On this table here, we find a note. On this note is Tyler's cancer diagnosis. When you put it down, you hear a woman screaming and your visor cracks.
Welcome home, Tyler.
We are plunged into a bloody hallway, and given a ton of ammo to face what's coming up next. This is the final challenge of the game. The enemies here are stronger, with some having blades for arms and legs. A siren blares and there's needles that poke down from the air to kill you. At the end, we come to the sight of these figures that we've seen throughout the game harming themselves. We're given some more ammo and face the last combat area of the game. Once we complete that, it goes black, and this happens.
Tyler, there was no other way. Even when we beat the disease, it was still a death sentence. She left us, everyone left us. The isolation, the loneliness. I don't have to take it anymore.
It turns out the guy on the radio was us the entire time, and we was Tyler. The whole game was just a story that Tyler had made up inside his head to justify ending his life. In this room, there's no other options. All you can do is press interact with the rope. But that isn't it though. There is an alternate ending where Tyler doesn't end himself. If you disobey the voice throughout the game and go the opposite directions to what he tells you to do, then it acts as Tyler combating his depression, and at the end of the game he realizes that he was wrong. This game was incredible. In the description there'll be a download link, and also remember that if you want to see me stream games before I make a video on it, you can join me at around 10 or 10:30 AM Pacific time every Saturday and Sunday. But for now, that's all.